Next point, that is fine particle characterization, that is also called as micromeritics. So micromeritics means what? It is the science and technology of the small particle. Micromeritics means the study of small particles, and the unit of the particle size is micrometer, micron, and equal to the 10 raised to power minus 6. As you can see in this image, there are various dosage form: tablet, capsules, dusting powder, granules. So all of these dosage forms are generally prepared by using the fine particles. And that's why the study of fine particles, that is micromeritics, is very important. As the particle size decreases, area of the particle increases. So you might be knowing this concept very well. As the particle size decreases, the area of the particle goes on increasing. So what will be the effect of this particle size and area? Let's see one by one. Just a minute. So in area of tablet and capsule manufacture, the control of particle size is very essential in achieving the flow properties and proper mixing. In area of tablet and capsule, particle size is very important, because if the particle size is not proper, the powder will not be having good flow properties, and that's why there may not be proper mixing of the granules and powder, and your tablet may be of unequal size, or there may be unequal distribution of drug in each tablet. So that's why particle size is very important. So as you can see in this image, this is the image of tablet machine. We are having this tablet machine in our machine room. So this is the hopper from which we can transfer the granules into the tablet machine, and this powder or granules directly enter into the dies of tablet machine. So what happens if the particle size is improper or flow properties is not proper? So if these particles or the powder is not having good flow properties, unequal amount of granules or the powder will enter into the dies, and every time your tablet may be having unequal size. Suppose you are expecting that the tablet should having the weight of about 500 milligram. If the powder is having very good flow properties, if the powder or granule is having very good flow properties, then you can achieve the tablet of 500 milligram each. There may not be variation. But if the powder or granules is having very poor flow properties, means the powder is not flowing very well. So in that case, each tablet may be having unequal size and the weight. So that's why the powder or granule must be having the good flow properties. And how to know the good flow properties? So that can be determined by using the angle of repose. Here you are having the funnel. You are all are very well known about the funnel. So in this funnel you have to transfer the powdered material or the granules. So initially you have to close the opening of this funnel by using your finger, transfer the powder inside of this funnel and remove your finger. Powder will start collecting onto a plain surface. So angle made by this powder with the plane surface, this angle will determines the flow properties of the powder. If the height of pyramid is very high, after transferring this powder onto a plane surface, there will be formation of this type of pyramid. So height of this pyramid is very high. Suppose the height is very high, then it is considered that the powder is not having good flow properties. If the height is very high, in that case the angle of repose will be more, and if the height of pyramid is less, in that case angle of repose will also less. So in general we are expecting that the angle of repose must be less than 30 or 20. Lesser the angle of repose, powder will be having very good flow properties. Particle size and size distribution. In collection of the particles of more than one size, two properties are very important. What are these two properties to be considered in collection of particles? First one is the shape and surface area. As you can see in this image, there are different shape of particles are shown in this image. One is spherical, rounded, cylindrical, spongy, aggregated, cubic, likewise. So these are the different shapes of these particles. So As per your knowledge, which of these particles will be having good flow properties? Anyone can answer?
Spherical.
Spherical, very good. Spherical particles are having very good flow properties. Why the spherical particles are having good flow properties? Because it is having maximum surface area and the edges are completely smooth and rounded. So that's why this type of particles are having very good flow properties. So that's why shape and surface area must be considered. Second, the particle size and size distribution. Particle size is again very important. Size range and number of weight of particle. Why the size range is very important? As the size increases, the particles will be having good flow properties. Smaller the particles, it will be having poor flow properties. So that's why in general we are expecting. So from these two important properties, always we are expecting that shape must be spherical and the size must be larger or coarser. The particle size should not be very small. Smaller the particle size, you will get the poor flow properties. So these are the very important properties of the particle to be considered. Next, particle size. Any collection of particles is usually polydisperse. Collection of particles is usually polydisperse. Polydisperse means what? Suppose you are taking a teaspoonful of any powder. So this powder will be consisting of polydispersed particle. Polydispersed particle means each particle may not be having equal size. There may be thousands of the particle having size less than 100 micron. Another thousands of the particle may be having size of 200 micron, 300 micron. In this way, this powder is made up of polydispersed particle, means each particle may be having different particle size. And that's why it is necessary to know the size of this particle and how many particles of same size exist in the sample, and thus we need an estimate of size range present. Suppose we can say after observation under microscope, suppose we observed that the smallest particle is having size of 100 micron and the largest particle is having size of 700 micron. So what will be the size range? 100 to 700. So we can say that this powder is having the size range of about 100 to 700 microns. So in this way we have to find out the size of individual particle and also we have to find out the size range. This is the particle size distribution, and from it we can calculate the average particle size. So from the size range, finally we can calculate the average particle size. Suppose the size range is 100 to 700, then by taking the average of the particle we can calculate the average particle size. Next, particle size distribution. When the number or weight of particles plotted against the size range, number or weight of particles. Suppose you are taking 100 particles, maybe having different sizes, and when you are plotting the graph of this particle against the size range, this graph is called as frequency distribution curve. So from this frequency distribution curve, you will get the idea of size distribution. And this is important because it is possible to have two samples with same average diameter but different distribution. Now, what is the application of this micromeritics? Why it is essential to study the particle size and shape? So first application is release and dissolution. Second application, absorption and drug action. Third application, physical stability. And the fourth application, dose uniformity. So let us discuss one by one, release and dissolution. So why particle size is important in case of release and dissolution? Particle size and surface area is having influence on release of the drug particle. So it is a normal phenomenon. If the particle size is larger, it will take more time to dissolve, and if it is taking more time to dissolve, it will take more time to absorb. Higher the surface area allows the intimate contact of drug with the dissolution fluid in vivo and increases the drug solubility and dissolution. Means if the surface area is more, the particle will be having more solubility and more dissolution. Absorption and drug action. Particle size and surface area again having influence on the drug absorption and subsequently the therapeutic action. What is the effect of particle size on drug absorption? If the particle size is very small, then it will dissolve fastly and it will absorb very fast. What happens if the particle size is very large? In that case, particle will dissolve very slowly because surface area is very small. Large particle size, smaller surface area. So in that case, it will dissolve very slowly, and if it is dissolving very slowly, then it will be having slow drug absorption. So that's why particle size and surface area is very important. Smaller the particle size, higher will be the dissolution. Smaller particle size, faster dissolution, and because of faster dissolution, you will get faster absorption and you will get the greater drug action. Next one is the physical stability. Particle size in formulation influences the stability of suspension and emulsion. You might be seen this suspension dosage form. Whenever you purchase any cup syrup, the first direction is that shake well before use. Why to shake well before use? Because this type of suspension containing the suspended particles. Sometimes this particle may get settled down at the bottom of container, and that's why every time we have to shake this container before use. When we are going to shake the container, the particle again get uniformly dispersed throughout the container, and then only you will get the corrected dosage form, corrected dose. What happens if the particles get settled down and without shaking you are taking the dose? Suppose bottle is on stand throughout the night, you are not going to shake, and in the next morning you are directly going to take the upper part of the suspension. If you are going to take upper part of the suspension, it will not contain the drug particle because the drug particle gets settled down at the bottom of your container, and that's why it is essential to shake the bottle before use so that particles will get uniformly dispersed and you will get the correct dose of the drug. Next, smaller the size of particle, better is the physical stability of the dosage form. Why? What is the reason why the particle size should be smaller so that you will get the better physical stability? Because larger the particle, it will be more dense in the nature. Density will be high. As the size increases, the density of the particle will also increases. And as the density increases, particle will settle down at the bottom very fast. And that's why particle size must be smaller in case of suspension. If the particle size is very smaller, it will be having less density and it will remain suspended for a longer duration. Look at this image. First image is for the stable suspension. Stable suspension means the particles are uniformly dispersed throughout the particle. As it remains standing position, the particles slowly start contacting with each other, and initially it will form some flocules, and finally it will form the cake or the sediment at the bottom of container. And once there is formation of this type of sediment or a cake, again it will be very difficult to disperse the suspension, and that's why particle size must be smaller. If the particle size is smaller, the particle will sediment very slowly, and after shaking again it will uniformly disperse. Then dose uniformity. Good flow properties of the granules and powders are important in manufacturing of tablet and capsules. Look at this image. These capsules containing the spherical particle. If the particles are spherical in the nature, then there is no doubt on the dose uniformity because spherical particles are having very good flow properties. In that case, each and every capsule will be filled with the equal amount of dose because in a minute thousands of the capsule get filled with the spherical particle. But if the powder or the granule is having very poor flow properties, if the particle size is very small, then the flow properties will be very poor. In that case, each and every capsule may not fill properly. In that case, if you check the content of each and every capsule, you can see that some capsule may fill up to 500 milligram, and some capsule may be having only 200 or 300 milligram. So why there is differences in these doses? Because the powder is having poor flow properties. If the particles are spherical or rounded shape, then each and every capsule will be having equal amount of dose. So that's why flow properties is expected in case of tablet and capsule. Again, same in case of tablets. If the granules are having good flow properties, then each tablet will be having equal weight. There will be uniformity in each dose. If the flow properties are affected, in that case, the tablet may not be having equal doses. Some tablet may be having 500 milligram dose, some tablet may be having 450 milligram dose. So that's why the good flow properties are very much expected in tablet and capsules. Now, what are the methods for determining the particle size? Many methods are available. First one is the optical microscopy, which is used in the range of 0.2 to 100 micron. Sieving method, in this case we are using the different mesh size, and it is used for determining the particle size about 40 to 9500 micron. Sedimentation method, in this case the range is about 0.08 to 300 micron, and the particle volume measurement, the range is about 0.5 to 300 micron. Now let us see the range, particle size, and what are the methods available for determining the particle size. Suppose the particle size is 1 micron or less than 1 micron. In that case, you can use electron microscope to measure the particle size. If you are having 1 micron or less than 1 micron particle size, and you are using optical microscope or the general microscope, which you have studied in your routine academic. So this, by using optical microscope, you cannot study the particle size of 1 micron. So for particle size 1 micron or less, you will require the electron microscope along with ultracentrifuge and adsorption. If the particle size in range of up to 100 micron, in that case you can use your regular microscope, optical microscope, along with the sedimentation, Coulter counter, and air permeability. If the particle size is more than 50 micron, then you can use the sieving method. So these are the different methods available for the measurement of size of particles. So let us see optical microscopy. What is meant by optical microscope? In this image, you can see that this is the optical microscope which is connected to a software in your computer. Once you place the slide under this optical microscope, directly you can see the image in this software. So no need to observe from the eyepiece. There is no eyepiece. Directly this optical microscope is connected to your computer. So once you place the slide, directly you can click the pictures, and you can also measure the size of each and every particles. According to the optical microscopic method, emulsion or suspension is mounted on the slide on a mechanical stage. So initially, first you have to take a drop of emulsion or suspension and keep that drop onto a slide, and then the microscope eyepiece is fitted with the micrometer by which the size of particles can be estimated. Here in this image you can see there is one eyepiece, microscope eyepiece, and this eyepiece is having this type of micrometer scale. So by means of naked eye you cannot see this scale. Once you keep this scale inside of this eyepiece micrometer and then observe under the optical microscope, then you can easily see the scale. And once you mount the slide onto your stage micrometer, you can easily measure the size of each and every particle which is observed through this scale. So behind this scale you can see number of particles are there, and easily you can measure the size of each and every particle which is present behind this scale. Very easily you can measure the size of each and every particles. The ordinary microscope is used for measurement of particle size in range of 0.2 to 100 micrometer. Disadvantage of microscopic method: the diameter is obtained from only two dimensions of the particle. What is meant by two dimension? Either you can measure the length or breadth. उसका length and width you can measure very easily. But what about the height or thickness of this particle? You don't know the thickness. So that's why diameter obtained only from the two dimension, and in this case the number of particle that must be counted 300 to 500 to obtain the good estimation. If you are measuring the length and breadth of single particle, you will not get the width or thickness of particle. So that's why we are measuring about 300 to 500 particles. So after observing 300 to 500 particles, sometime you are getting length, sometime you are getting width, sometime you are getting the thickness, and finally you are taking the average of this 300 to 500 particle, so that you will get average particle size of these particles. Then next one is the sieving method. In this sieving method, standard size sieves are available to cover the wide range of sizes. Different sieves are available. You can see this topmost sieve will be having larger pore size, and the lowermost sieve will be having very smallest size. So according to the size of mesh, we are going to separate the particles. So these sieves are designed to sit in a stack so that the material falls through the smaller mesh and reaches a mesh which is too fine for it to pass through. So at the topmost you will be having larger mesh size, and the bottom side you will be having smallest mesh size. So based on these sizes, we are going to separate the particles. On the topmost sieve you will get the larger particle, then smaller, and finally at the bottom you will get very fine powder. So in this way we are going to separate the powder, and finally we are going to calculate the range of this powdered material. So suppose at the topmost the mesh size is about 16, okay, or we can consider the size of particle. Suppose the size of this particle is about 1000 micron, and the size of smallest particle is about 100 micron. So we can say that the size range of this particle is ranging from 100 micron to 1000 micron. Suppose the smallest particle is collected on the second last of this mesh, okay, then the size range will be from 200 to 1000. So in this way we are going to calculate the size range of particles by using the sieving method. So this is the sieving apparatus by which we can separate the different size of particles, and we can easily find out the size range. Stack of sieves is mechanically shaken to promote the passage of solids. So each of these sieves will be shaken mechanically so that the particles will pass down in downward direction. The fraction of materials between the pair of sieves sizes is determined by weighing the residues on each sieves. Once the sieving is done, then we have to separate the sieves, and we have to calculate the material collected on the surface of each sieve. Result achieved will depends on the duration of the agitation and manner of agitation. So at least we have to keep this sieving method for at least 30 minutes so that each and every particles will get separated easily. Then sedimentation method. So sedimentation method is calculated by means of Anderson apparatus. So in this case we are in this image you can see there are two measuring cylinder. In simple way I am going to explain. In first measuring cylinder we have to transfer the suspension and let it allow to settle down. So after 24 hours you can see that the particles get settled down up to this much height, from 100 ml to 50 ml. So how much time taken by particle for the sedimentation? Suppose 24 hours are taken, then in this way we can calculate the sedimentation rate. How much time taken by particle to get sediment at the bottom. So this can also be calculated by means of Anderson pipette or Anderson apparatus. Next point is flow properties of powder. Now we are finished with the particle size. Now we are going to start with the flow properties of powders. Powders may be free flowing or cohesive. If the shape is spherical, then it will be very heavy, very free flowing powder, and if the shape is irregular, then the powder may be cohesive. Flow properties are significantly affected by the changes in particle size, density, shape, adsorb moisture. How the particle size affects the flow properties? If the particle size is larger, it will be having good flow properties. Particle size is smaller, it will be having poor flow properties. What about the density? How's the density affect the flow properties? If the material is denser, high density, in that case flow properties will be higher, good flow properties. And if the density is very slow, then the powder will be having poor flow properties. Again, shape we already discussed. The spherical particles are having good flow properties and irregular shape particles are having poor flow properties. Then again, adsorb moisture. If the powder or granules are having adsorb moisture, in that case again flow properties will be affected. And if the powder is dry in the nature, completely dry, free from moisture, in that case flow properties will be very good. Many common manufacturing problems are attributed to the powder flow. Powder flow through the large equipment such as hopper. Hopper we have seen in the tablet machine. So hopper powder flow properties are affected also in the hopper. Uneven powder flow it may be because of the excess of entrap air within the powder, and it may causes the capping and lamination. If your powder is having unentrapped air, then this unentrapped air may affect the flow properties of the powder. Again, unequal poor flow may be because of the particle frictions. If the particles are irregular in shape, then there may be particle frictions, and because of this friction, it may causes the rubrication problem and increases the dust contamination risk during the powder flow. So this particle friction because of irregular size and entrap air, so this may affect the poor flow properties in the hopper. Next one is the powder storage. If you are going to store powder for a longer time, then there may be caking. Particles may adhere with each other, and finally there may be formation of cake. And once there is formation of cake, again it will difficult or it will affect the flow properties. So separation of small quantity of powder from the bulk. Separation of small quantity of powder from the bulk. Suppose you are having 1000 kilograms of the powder and you are taking very much small quantity of the powdered material. Then in that case there may be it may affect the weight uniformity of the dose. Suppose we are expecting 500 milligram of drug for a tablet and you are taking a very small quantity from 1000 kilogram of the batch, then in that case you may observe the it may affect the weight uniformity. From this image you can see from this side you can see the powder is flowing very smoothly in the form of fine stream. So in this case we can say that this type of powder is having very good flow properties. You can see that the height of pyramid is very less and angle of repose is also very less, up to 20 degree. Angle of repose is also very small and the height of pyramid is also small. In that case we can say that this type of powder is having good flow properties. And if the height of pyramid is high, in that case angle of repose will also more, and in this case powder properties will be affected. Then flow properties of powder. Test to evaluate the flowability of powder. Its flow properties can be evaluated by means of Kerr's compressibility index, Hausner's ratio, and angle of repose. Flow properties can be evaluated by means of these three methods: Kerr's compressibility index, Hausner's ratio, and angle of repose. So let us see what is meant by Kerr's compressibility index. A volume of powder is fitted into a graduated glass cylinder and repeatedly tapped for known duration. The volume of powder after tapping is measured. So simply you have to take a measuring cylinder, and in this measuring cylinder you have to transfer known weight of the powder. Suppose you are transferring 100 gram of the powder into a 100 ml measuring cylinder. Then after transferring this powder into a measuring cylinder, repeatedly you have to tap that measuring cylinder onto a platform. So after tapping, volume of powder more goes on decreasing. So after decreasing, you can calculate the density. So this is the formula for Carr's index. Carr's index is equal to bulk density minus tap density divided by tap density into 100. So this is the equipment available to measure the bulk density. In a measuring cylinder, you have to transfer the known amount of powder and then start this apparatus. So this apparatus going to tap this measuring cylinder for 100 times. Okay. So you can see this is the first image in which initially we are going to transfer we can say 100 gram of powder in 100 ml of measuring cylinder. So this is called as bulk volume without tapping. So this is called as bulk volume, and from this bulk volume you can calculate the bulk density. How to calculate bulk density? Mass of powder divided by volume of powder. This is called as bulk density. As it is, once you transfer the powder into measuring cylinder without tapping, you have to calculate the bulk density. How to calculate bulk density? That is mass of powder or the weight of powder divided by volume of the measuring cylinder. And then you can start tapping for the 100 times. So after 100 tapping, the volume of powder more goes on decreasing. The empty air spaces may get replaced by the particles. So in that case, the volume of powder will be less, and again you have to calculate the tap density by using the same formula. Now tap density will be equal to mass of powder divided by tap volume of the powder. Next one, after calculation by using this formula, once you calculate the Carr's index, then by using this observation table you have to decide the flow properties. Suppose the Carr's index is in between 5 to 15, then we can say this type of powder is having excellent flow properties. You can say the particles may be spherical in the nature, completely spherical, so that's why the compressibility index is 5 to 15. Suppose the compressibility index is 16 to 18, then flow property is said to be a good flow property. If the index is 19 to 21, fair flow properties, 22 to 32, 35, poor flow properties, 36 to 40, very poor, and more than 40, extremely poor flow properties. So in this way, using Carr's index, you can decide the flow properties of given powdered material. Next one is the Hausner's ratio. Again, for this Hausner's ratio, you require the tap density and bulk density. Simply, you have to divide the tap density by bulk density and you will get the ratio. Suppose the ratio is less than 1.25. Suppose the value of this Hausner's ratio is 1.25. Less than 1.25, it is said to be having good flow properties. If the ratio is about less than 1.25, then the Carr's, it may be equal to 20% Carr's index. If the value is greater than 1.5, then it is said to be having poor flow properties. And if the value is in between 1.25 to 1.5, then in this case you can improve the flow properties by addition of glidants. What is meant by glidant? So glidant, for example, talc. So by addition of talc, you can improve the flow properties. So this talc will fill the imperfections of the irregular particle and it will improve the flow properties. But if the Hausner's ratio is more than 1.5, then in that case glidant will not work and it will not improve the flow properties. So according to Hausner's ratio, if the value is less than 1.5, powder is said to be having good flow properties. If the value is in between 1.25 to 1.5, flow properties can be increased by addition of glidant, and if the value is more than 1.5, then it is having poor flow properties and we cannot improve the flow properties even by addition of glidants. Next one is the angle of repose, as we discussed already earlier. In this case, you have to transfer the powdered material through a funnel. The powder will start falling down onto a plane surface, and you have to determine the angle of repose of this pyramid. You have to calculate the angle of this pyramid. At what angle there is formation of pyramid. So From this angle we can decide the flow properties. As we have seen in the Cars index, by using Cars index we are going to determine the flow properties. So in the same way, by using the angle of repose we can also calculate the angle of repose. So how to determine whether the given powder is having good flow properties or poor flow properties? Suppose the angle of repose is less than 20, then it is said to be having a good flow properties. If the angle of repose is 20 to 30, it is said to be having good flow properties. If the angle of repose is between 30 to 40, then it is having passable flow, pass flow. We may accept it, but if the angle of repose is more than 40, then it is said to be having poor flow properties. Rougher and more irregular surface of the particles, higher will be the angle of repose. More rough and irregular shape structures will be having high angle of repose. In that case, the height of pyramid will be very high. Height of pyramid will be greater. And if the height of pyramid is greater, then angle of repose will be also goes on increasing. Then factors affecting the flow properties of powder. First one is the particle size. Already we have discussed the effect of particle size. If the particle size is very small, it will affect the flow properties. If the particle size is larger, or we can say coarser particle, will be having very good flow properties. So we are expecting the larger particle size. Then the shape. Again we have discussed this one also. The shape must be spherical or having the smooth surfaces, so that it will be having good flow properties. Alteration in surface forces. So during transferring the powder through a hopper, or naturally there is formation of some charges on these particle surfaces. Some particles may be having positive charges, some particle may be having negative charges. So in this way there may be development of electrostatic charges. So there may be repulsion or attraction in between the particle because of these surface charges. Formulation of additives, flow activator. Additives will also affect the flow properties. Suppose the flow properties are affected, suppose the given granules or powder are very poor flow in the nature, in that case we can add the additives, that is also called as flow activator, means talc. So TAL will fill the all imperfections on the particle surface, and once the imperfections get filled by the additives, then the surface of particles become very smooth, edges will become rounded, and the flow properties will be improved. So these are various factors which are affecting the flow properties of the powder: size, shape, surface forces, and the additives. Alteration of particle size and distribution. Certain particle size at which flow properties ability is optimum. Coarser particles are more preferred than the fine particles, and size distribution can be altered to remove the flowability. If you want to improve the flowability, then remove the proportion of fine particles. Suppose it is observed that the given 100 gram of the powder contain very fine particle, near about 200 suppose 100 gram contain 20 gram of the fine particle, and because of this fine particle it is having poor flow properties. So once you separate this fine particle, you can increase the flowability of your coarser particle. So always try to keep minimum amount of fine particle in the granules. Then alteration of particle shape. More spherical particle, there will be the better flow, and the spherical particles are obtained by the method that is called as spray drying, or by temperature cycling crystallization. Next is the texture. Particle with very rough surfaces will be more cohesive and having greater tendency to interlock than the smooth surfaces. So if you are expecting the very good flow, in that case surfaces must be smooth. If the surfaces are very rough, then the particle may get interlock with each other, and then it may be having poor flow properties. Then alteration on the surface forces. Reduction of electrostatic charges can improve the powder flow properties. Then moisture contained. Suppose your powdered material contains some moisture, then because of this moisture, there may be aggregation of particles. And once the particles get aggregated, it will affect the flow properties. So that's why first we have to remove the moisture content. Adsorbed surface moisture tend to increase the bulk density and reduce the porosity. Drying the particle will reduce the cohesiveness and improve the flow properties. So before going to determine the angle of repose or the flow properties, first we have to dry the particle by using hot air oven. First we have to remove all the moisture and then only we can determine the flow properties. Hygroscopic powder stored and processed under low humidity condition. If the powder is hygroscopic, means it will absorb the moisture from the environment. Then in that case, powdered material must be stored at low humidity condition. If this hygroscopic powder is kept in open condition in a high humidity condition, then in that case the powder will absorb the moisture, then there may be formation of clumps and finally your product may get damaged. Then formulation additives, or which is also called as flow activator. So what are the flow activator? These are commonly referred to as glidant. So by addition of flow additive we can improve the flow properties. Flow activator improve the flowability of powder by reducing the adhesion and cohesion. So by addition of the activator we can increase the smoothness of the particle. Particles will become very smooth and then it will be having good flow properties. For example, talc or maize starch we can use as flow activators, or which is also called as glidant. So by addition of this talc or the glidant we can improve the flow properties.